Good morning. On behalf of the Student Council and Peer Leadership Council, I would like to welcome you to the 2021 Elgin Park Virtual Career Webinar. Today, I'm speaking on the shared traditional and unceded territory of the Katsi, Semiahmoo, and other Coast Salish peoples. My name is Fifi, and I will be your coordinator for this session. We also have our wonderful PLC and STUCO volunteers here as chat moderators and note takers. So with that being said, I will be passing it over to our student interviewer, Kaylin, who will introduce our honored speaker today.
Thanks, Fifi. Our speaker here today is Mr. Simon Padgett. Simon's a forensic accountant and fraud investigator of over 25 years. He assists corporations and individuals who have fallen victim to fraud or financial mismanagement at his own forensic accounting and investigation practice, Forensic Integrity. Additionally, Simon has spoken in over 40 countries as he is also a professional speaker and trainer in fraud and corruption investigations. I'm super excited to learn more about Mr. Padgett's exciting career and the journey he took to get to where he is today. So please join me in virtually welcoming Simon.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for that nice introduction.
Of course.
I must tell you, forensic accounting, I bet you're all wondering what it is. A bit excited to learn about this. It's very exciting. It's if you're wondering what career to go into, it's a very fast moving and exciting career.
Right.
I'm basically an accountant. Okay, so in Canada, you take exams to become a chartered professional accountant, which is a CPA. And then once you've got your qualifications, you can specialize in many things in accounting. You can do tax, you can prepare accounts for businesses, you can do audits, which is checking the books, or you can do something called forensic accounting. So forensic accounting is investigating fraud and corruption in companies. This is when people steal money from big companies. Let's just say somebody works at a company and they work in the finance department and they pay all the expenses for their company. Well, they may need some money themselves and they may get a bit naughty and they will steal some for themselves as well. So instead of writing a check from the company to a supplier for the supply of telephones, petrol, rents, wages, they may write a check to themselves for maybe 100,000 and put it in their own bank account. So the company wants accountants, forensic accountants, to come in to investigate that. They want to know how much has been stolen, and they want the police to come in, and they want the guy to go to jail. So that's what forensic accounting is.
Well, sounds exciting, actually. What are some hard and soft skills of a forensic accountant?
So I'm not exactly sure what the difference between hard and soft skills are, but I'll tell you what the skills are.
All right.
To be a forensic accountant, you've got to be quite quick with numbers, maybe in your head, but don't worry too much about that because we have computers and calculators now to do that for us. But you've got to have a kind of an intrusive mind, an inquisitive mind, an investigator's mind. That's the sort of mind where you're always asking questions. Why this? Why that? Why does that invoice look very unusual? Why is that check made out to the head of finance and not to the supplier? You have to have a mind that is always asking questions, and in a way you're not really satisfied with the answers. So when people in the organization answer your questions, you say, well, maybe I don't believe you. Prove it. Show me the paperwork. Show me a document. So you've got to have an inquisitive mind. You've got to be quite quick arithmetically. At the end of the day, somebody will say somebody's stolen 100,000, and we go up and we start adding things up, and maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's 1 million. You've got to be able to calculate these things quickly and add them up. But of course, we've got Excel and we've got computers to do that.
Well,
so those are the main skills.
Yeah, since you mentioned that, a lot of your work revolves around using computers and technology, but as technology is rapidly advancing, how may forensic accountant change in the future?
So you're quite right, and it's technology is an advantage to both the investigator, the forensic accountant is the investigator, and also to the fraudster as well, the person stealing the money. You know, the technology can be used on both sides. But I mean, today we're doing an investigation on somebody that's stolen lots of money. So I'll give you an example. We've got all this person's emails, and we're searching through all the emails looking for suspicious emails and clues. So he may well email somebody saying, I've just stolen some money, can I put it into your bank account? So we can search through his emails for keywords like the word stolen, the word theft, the word fraud, the word I'm getting rich quick. You know, he may send messages to his brother or his sister saying, let's go on holiday, I've just stolen lots of money. So we can search through his emails using some very fast technology. And we have to ask the technology to search for keywords in those emails, and it will bring us those emails straight away. Yeah, we have technology that will analyze lots of data. So in all our businesses, I mean, your school is a typical business. In your school and in any other business, you have lots of data, thousands and thousands of payments going out every year, thousands and thousands of receipts, money coming in every year. So for us human beings, it will take a long time to look through all those transactions. But if we can list them all in a computer and we can search them and filter them, we can find out quickly where the money's come from, where it's going to. So there's no doubt about it that technology is helping us a great deal. It's making the investigations a lot quicker and a lot more efficient.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of work, I guess, searching through all the emails.
Well, it is a lot of work, and 10 years ago it was a lot of work, but what we're saying now is it's a little bit less work because we've got the computers to do a lot of the work for us.
So maybe in the future, what would take an hour now would just take 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, maybe in the future, what takes more like a month now, we can probably do it in 3 or 4 days. Yeah.
Well, what does a typical day of your work look like?
So a typical day, well, I would have several investigations on the go at any one time. Because we're in a pandemic and the financial economy is not too good, a lot of people are struggling and have been laid off. They're not working anymore. There's no money coming in. So that creates fraud. When people don't have a lot of money, they steal, and they steal from companies. So a typical day at the moment would be to look at one client and check through some invoices to make sure that the person isn't, you know, a good example of a fraud, if I'm working as the finance person in a company in the office, is I can type up an invoice on Word and say, pay Simon. My name is Simon. So I can say, pay Simon for services last week, $1,000. I've never done any services for the company. I work there. Okay, I get a salary, but I'm pretending I did. And then I'll hand it to somebody else who pays the checks, and they'll read it, and they'll not read it properly, and they'll pay a check to Simon for $1,000. And they'll mail it, and I'll have a different mailing address, and I'll put it in my bank account. So instead of the $1,000 check going to a supplier of the business, you know, for purchase of desks or chairs or paper or pens or anything, it goes to the person in the office who's stealing it. Wow. So maybe I'll search through a lot of invoices electronically, looking for suspicious invoices. Maybe I get all the checks back from the bank, and I'll look through all the checks, maybe looking for any checks to Simon. That would give me a clue that Simon's stolen money from the business. Maybe I'll go to the business itself and look at their warehouse and their stock, and count the stock in the warehouse, the inventory. These are all the items that they're selling, and maybe the books say there should be 1,000 things in the stock warehouse, but there's only 500. It means that the other 500 have been stolen. So, and then I'll move on to a different client. It might be a different thing where there has been some cyber fraud or internet fraud, and I'll have to look through some internet tracking devices and internet search engines to try and find where these internet thieves in Russia, for example, are trying to steal from people in Canada. We see this on the news, don't we? Cybercrime. So that might be a typical day. And then I'll have to visit the bank, and then I'll have to go and visit the police, because we always hand these cases over to the police because they arrest the people. when I give them the evidence, and they put these people in jail.
All right. Well, you mentioned a lot about using search engines and counting, see if numbers add up. What are some tools forensic accountants use to say find hidden assets?
Oh, hidden assets. Okay. So there are, it depends what you mean by hidden assets. But for example, we're looking at a case at the moment whereby a guy in Vancouver actually has stolen $4 million from his company. And of course, that's a lot of money for him to put under the bed or put in his bank account. People will notice. So one of the things he did is he bought a nice house on Vancouver Island, or one of the holiday islands over there. So we know he's stolen $4 million. We now have to do searches of his assets. We have to search in government registries. You can do formal search, you pay about $10 or something, and there's a registrar of all the properties and who owns them in BC. There's also a listing, the police and ICBC have listings of all cars owned and things like that. So we can search these databases, and we can, once we get to the court proceedings with this guy and we say, you've stolen 4 million, but we understand you've got a house worth 2 million. And a car also worth $500,000. He's got a nice car. So we are instructing the police to go and reclaim these assets from you. So you can search databases and find out what people have and where they've spent their fraud money, because we want it back for the business. You know, quite often they just have it sitting in their bank account. The banks work with us, we work with the banks, we get court orders to get the bank balances and the bank statements, and we'll see that the $4 million is sitting in his deposit account or his wife's deposit account. Well, we can have a court order then to get that back as well.
Wow.
So tracing the assets to get the money back is a very important part of what we do. So he's stolen 4 million, but with court costs, our costs, legal costs, he's actually got to pay back 5 million. So that will teach him. So he'll have to sell all his assets, and we help the police to enforce that.
Okay. Wow. So working with the police is exciting.
Yeah, sometimes it's exciting when you've got when you're working at midnight and you're just adding up lots and lots of numbers. It's not so exciting, but usually it's very exciting. We do also use our cars, and we drive around and we follow people and we see where they're going. And if we see they're going to a luxury mansion, you know, we'll look at who owns it. We'll see him driving big fancy cars that he's bought with the stolen money. We can do searches. So we also follow people and observe them. But really the accountants, the forensic accountants, really are focused on the numbers.
Well, for students who are interested to go into accounting or forensic accounting, could you give an overview of your education journey that led to where you are today?
Yeah, that's quite important, because you obviously need to start planning that now when you're in your final years at school. So really you need, first of all, to look at becoming a CPA. CPA is a chartered professional accountant. So you need that qualification. From there, you can get other qualifications that will get you into fraud and forensics. Now, to get your CPA, you're going to need to have a university degree. And I suspect the degree and your subjects will have to include something like certainly maths. Or I think you call it math in Canada, but maths, we call it in England. You know, obviously the numbers. Maybe if you're doing some sort of degree involved in business administration, something like that, that would be my recommendation. Once you get your university degree, then you'll enroll to start working as a CPA accountant. And to do that, you'll actually start working in a firm of accountants, and they will help you with your exams and your studies. And when you pass your exams, you have to have a little bit of experience in your CPA office working as well. And then when you get your CPA, you start doing accounting audit work, and you'll quickly find that the frauds that you look at are quite exciting, and you'll want a career in fraud. So I would suggest that once you've got your CPA, the next step is a qualification called the CFE. It's the Certified Fraud Examiners. So worldwide, that's really the biggest qualification to have.
Mhm.
So I am a CPA, I'm a CFE, I'm also a British Chartered Accountant, but that's not really relevant. That's not relevant to you here. You just need the Canadian one. So, I mean, that's the route you take. It's important to have these qualifications because when you stand up in court and you're trying to put somebody in jail, the judge will ask you, if you think you're very clever at forensic accounting, Mr. Simon, what qualifications do you have? So you have to tell them your qualifications because you're effectively putting someone in jail for maybe 10 years or more. So the system has to be sure that you know what you're talking about.
Mm. Wow.
Okay.
Well, you're very successful in your careers. So what is one tip you would give to students who wish to find success, whatever that may be, in their professional careers?
One tip. Okay. My tip would be going to work every day and starting a career and doing your career is not really about earning money and having a good lifestyle with lots of money. My one tip would be do something that you enjoy.
Mhm.
Okay, so you must enjoy your work. And the definition of enjoying work is, yes, you might finish at 5 o'clock, but in forensics, quite often you have to work after and late, and do you want to do that? You know, you have to work at something that excites you. So you keep going when the pay stops, right?
Mhm.
So when people stop paying you, you still do a little bit more because you want to, because you enjoy it.
Mhm.
Finance to me is a bit of it might be a hobby. It's an interest, it's a hobby. The world revolves around finance, and when people steal it, it annoys me. It annoys me when people steal money because it's so difficult to earn. And therefore, I enjoy doing that. I get great satisfaction from putting somebody in jail after a 3-month investigation, taking them off the streets, and maybe getting some money back for the poor company that they've stolen from. Companies are going through a bad time at the moment with the economy being so bad. So when people steal from them, it makes it even worse. A lot of companies, fraud causes them to close down. So it's very sad. So it's very satisfying to stop these people doing these bad things. So my one message is choose something that you enjoy. You might not know that you enjoy it until you start doing it. So
Mhm.
let's just say you start a job and you go every day and, oh my goodness, it's a bit boring. I can't imagine me doing this for the rest of my life. This is an office job and it's very boring. I don't like it. Rethink and move to something that you enjoy. Try something else.
Mhm.
So it's very important to enjoy what you do.
Yep, definitely finding something you're passionate about.
Passionate, yeah,
Yeah.
good word. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. And finally, do you have any cool stories and experiences you would like to share?
Yeah, I've got lots of cool fraud investigation stories. First of all, they're all confidential. You sign agreements with companies. You're not really allowed to give names and talk about them, but you can talk about them anonymously. So I've worked all over the world. Can't think of one specific. I worked in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, where we're running around chasing after fraudsters, and it's 50 degrees centigrade. There was one in Mozambique in Africa where we accused somebody of stealing all the money, and he pulled out a gun on us and put
Whoa.
a gun to our heads. Many wonderful stories. One story where we had to fly all the way to Australia, and it was like a 20-hour flight, and when we got there they wouldn't let us interview them. Lots of stories, but
Wow.
all good fun. And generally speaking, when something goes wrong in an investigation, like somebody pulls a gun on you, you walk away, you actually run away. It's not important, it's only work. And then it is like an admission of guilt. them pulling the gun on you means that they're fearful of going to jail, and then they're caught. So you just write a report, work with the police, they're arrested, and they go straight to jail.
Wow.
So don't get me wrong, it's not a dangerous career. It's being an accountant, and it's going into businesses, and it's looking at numbers, and it's interviewing people. So don't think it's dangerous. But you asked me about some of the exciting war stories. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your passion. Now we'll move on to the Q&A portion. Our moderator Lucas will be relaying the questions in chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kaylin. Hi, Simon. I'm the moderator, Lucas, and I will be asking you some of our audience's questions now. To start, Mr. Leader is wondering, is there such thing as the perfect crime? He's asking for a friend, so this is not him.
The perfect crime. Well, from the fraudster's point of view, the perfect crime is one he can get away with. From my point of view and the law enforcement point of view, the perfect crime is one that you can catch. The perfect crime, I would say that the fraud world is shifting very much towards cybercrime. Cybercrime. So people are committing crimes using the internet or using computers. So actually cybercrime involves most frauds at the moment because a computer is used in some way, shape or form. But the thing about cybercrime is it creates anonymity for the fraudster. They can be anonymous, they can be invisible. So I think to answer your question, there is a trend towards online fraud, whereby, for example, instead of stealing stock out of the warehouse, or instead of stealing cash out of the company's bank, they will send them an electronic invoice over the internet and try and get that paid. That way, there's no interaction between the fraudster and the company. They're kind of invisible. You don't know who they are, you don't know where they are, you don't really know how to catch them. They do have IP addresses and there are things we can do, but it makes it very difficult. So the perfect crime nowadays is cybercrime. It makes it difficult for us to trace them, and quite often they're getting away with the money.
Wow, that must be very difficult for you guys. And Mitch is wondering, how long does it take to get qualified as a CFE?
Oh, good. Right. So you go to university, get your degree, then you'll start your CPA process. So the CPA might take you 3 years, maybe 4 years to get your CPA. That's with a bit of work as well, and then doing all the exams. And then the CFE itself is actually not long. I think on average it's 2 years, 24 months. It is a lot of studying, but if you've got the time and you can do the studying, the exams are online. So it's relative. Well, I mean, everything's online now, isn't it? But the exams, I remember many years ago when I did it. I think I did it in 12 months. So, but I wouldn't recommend that. There's a lot to study. So to get the CFE, which is the Certified Fraud Examiner exams, I'd say 12 to 24 months. Not a long time.
Yeah, that's not too bad of a process.
A lot of the background and basics for doing the CFE you will have already done by doing a CPA. The background to accounting is the grounding for CFE. You've already done some of it.
Right. That's nice. So it just builds off each other.
Builds onto it. Yeah, it builds onto it. Yeah.
All right. And so Rachel is wondering, what is the most serious case you've ever had? The worst punishment and the most amount of money someone has taken illegally?
Wow. So I remember some years ago, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I remember a case that we looked at in South Africa, maybe 15 years ago, and it was the world's biggest fraud case at that time. How much was it? It was then something like $5 billion. But it was in South African rand, so it was a lot of money. It was about investment scams. So these people were asking for investments, and big companies would invest, and then they'd run away with the money. So that was the biggest. And sorry, what was the rest of your question? You had like 3 questions.
Like
in one
the
there.
worst punishment. Yeah, the worst punishment that someone's received from their fraud, and the most amount of money, which I'm assuming is this.
Yeah. So worst punishment, typically frauds of a serious amount of money, the fraudsters will get over 10 years in jail. So, I think we've seen several at 10, 12, 15 years in jail. I've never seen anything longer than that. Actually, the worst thing that can happen to somebody in terms of punishment, jail is pretty bad, but their reputation is finished for life.
Right.
So they can never work again. They can never start a business because you're not allowed to be a director. So that is probably as bad as the punishment. Their income stream, their salary income, their ability to earn money stops. They can't work again because of the bad reputations.
So would you say that the time that they serve, they deserve that much, or should they get longer, do you think?
Well, that's the courts that have decided that. It's obviously the correct amount of time. The world, countries like Canada are in a place where they believe that people should be given a second chance. They shouldn't ruin them for life. But certainly they deserve to be punished for a long time, especially if they've stolen $10 million. That's not just them benefiting from that. That money has to come from somewhere, and it comes from everybody else in the company, because they won't get pay rises, they won't get bonuses because the money's all gone. So they're taking money out of other people's profits, the profit out of other people's pockets. The profits from the company are lower because the guy's stolen all the money, and therefore there's no bonuses, distributions, share payouts. So the punishment is because it's ruined many people's lives.
Right, of course. And Rachel also was wondering, have you ever suspected someone but was unable to find enough evidence to convict them of fraud?
Yeah, I'm quite sure we've got a few cases like that. Money laundering is a type of fraud. So money laundering is when criminals move money around the globe to try and hide it. So money laundering is a big part of what we do. We chase the money around the globe. Sometimes it gets so complicated that it just vanishes. They convert it into flash cars, Lamborghinis and McLarens, and they're just cars that are driven around. It's difficult to tie that to the fraud. But sometimes they buy properties in very distant places on Caribbean islands, and you can't get access to the information. Sometimes these people just vanish with their money. It's very difficult, especially now with, as we said before, cybercrime. That makes it very difficult for people to trace these. And quite often with cybercrime, somebody saying to your organization, that transaction last week, and we have the 10 million now. And there was a transaction last week, so you're the finance person, you pay the 10 million, but it goes to somebody else. Yeah. Right. This is all done online, over the internet, over emails, and then the email is blocked, everything's closed down, there's no telephone numbers. So yeah, I'm quite sure, so long as we do the best we can and try our best, it's up to companies to be proactive and not let this happen in the first place. That's the best method, but it does happen.
So the idea for the criminals is spend it before you guys can get it, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, when he spends it, there is a flow. It goes through bank accounts and we can trace it, but sometimes they're very clever and they camouflage it as big invoices that are being paid, and international trading with things, buying and selling things. They camouflage it as something else, and it's very difficult to prove. Normally we get there and we can prove it, but there are cases inevitably that where the fraudster is always cleverer than us. Okay, you must remember that. As soon as you set up a method to catch them, they set up a method to bypass that. Yeah. So you're always chasing each other.
Of course, always one step behind.
Yeah.
All right, and Mitch was wondering, how did you know accounting was your passion, or forensic accounting? And did you take accounting in high school?
Yeah, I took accounting, first of all maths, then accounting. I got interested in it because it was all about how you run businesses. Accountants typically end up running the businesses. They become the CEOs, the CFOs, the board members. So I started my career in accounting doing auditing, which is checking books. And I did a few years of that, but I got a little bit bored of that because you're always checking that things are right. When I found something wrong, a number that was wrong because somebody was stealing numbers, stealing money, that gave me an excitement. So I quickly found that I would rather do forensics than auditing, because forensics was a bit more exciting. It was chasing the negative. Auditing is ticking things that are right. You know, if you can imagine driving down the road, imagine you're a bit of a naughty driver, you're driving down the road doing everything right, you might think that's a bit boring. But as soon as you do a bit of speeding, you get a buzz out of it.
Right, that adrenaline.
Yeah, adrenaline. So it gives you an adrenaline buzz, and it gives you a satisfaction that you're doing something right for the world as well. You're getting rid of somebody that's stealing things.
Right, of course. And a student would like to know, what percentage of the money recovered is your commission for your salary?
Oh, commission for salary. So we don't take commissions, first of all, because if you have an investigation and you take a commission, the court will think that you have just done this for money, that you're exaggerating things and you're making it look bigger than it is, because your earnings will be higher. So we always charge hourly rates. We charge a standard rates for our work. All forensic investigators do that. It's one of our rules. So sorry, what was the question? How much do we earn?
Yeah, how much, like what percentage of the money recovered is your commission for salary? But I'm assuming there's no commission, so it's none.
Yeah, so there's no way I can tell you that, because it doesn't happen. We're not allowed to say 10% of what we recover. We're not allowed to in our game, because maybe the court will think we go and steal things to recover it, and it makes it look bigger, therefore we earn more. Typically we charge per the hour, and that's hundreds of dollars an hour. It's a lot of money, but when you think, you know, frauds are hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, we don't look at frauds at $10,000 and $15,000. We don't look at those. It's the big stuff that companies worry about. So if we catch the person, we stop them stealing, we put them in jail, they're very happy. So we have charge out rates typically $300, $400, $500 an hour. Okay. That gives you some idea. Not just my company, but that's what all companies charge in this field. It's very specialist. I know the minimum wage here is whatever it is it $15 an hour, $14 an hour. Sounds like a lot of money, but it's a lot of work, a lot of thought process. We're working with the police, we're working with the courts, and it provides value. It provides value. So, you know, it's quite often $1 million has gone missing. We'll spend a month or two, and our fees might be, I don't know, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for that. That's very small in light of the million that was stolen. And quite often companies have insurance that will pay this. They have insurance against fraud. So the insurers will negotiate with us and pay us our fees, but we don't do commissions.
Right.
Commissions taint a transaction. They make it like the more money I put in the problem, the more money that I can say is the problem, the more money I will earn. So that's not what the courts want. The court wants the real amount of the money lost, not the more money I've added to it to try and get a bigger fee.
Right. It'd be unfair.
So in forensics, we don't 99% of the time take commissions. We're not allowed to.
That's fair. And Ms. Mendes' class is wondering if you ever work with cryptocurrencies and if they're more difficult to track. Yeah,
done a lot of work with cryptos. It's one of my specialties. I was the director for a long time, the last 3 years, of a Canadian crypto company on the stock market. I was on their board. And yes, cryptocurrencies have historically been a method of hiding money laundering. So people steal money, they commit fraud from companies, or they steal things as a crime, bank robberies even, things like that. They're now looking for somewhere to hide the money, and this is called money laundering. And crypto is one method of doing that. But we have some technology that can follow the flow. So crypto is anonymous. You can buy crypto, you can buy Bitcoin, and it's a big number and you're not a name. You become a number in a system. Very difficult to prove that you put that money in, bought the currency and transferred it to somebody else. But we do have some technology which helps us trace these flows. As we spoke about earlier, the technology helps us a lot. So yeah, crypto, very much like cybercrime, is a good way for the fraudster to be anonymous or hidden and get away with what he's doing. Makes it a little bit more difficult for forensic experts, forensic accountants to trace the money. I'm not saying we can't do it. We've had some good successes at it, but historically, it's been a good way for fraudsters and bank robbers to hide their money.
Of course. And Mr. Leader is wondering, in your experience, is it common for people to be framed for a crime they did not commit?
I wouldn't say it's common. If you hate somebody that much, it's a lot of work to go through to frame them, and you need to plant lots of documents in a system, forge signatures. You'd probably get caught for forgery and fraud yourself. I wouldn't say it's common. I would say it does happen. I think if you're a forensic accountant, you would identify that very quickly. If somebody has a grudge with somebody and they give you a document that says somebody's stolen money, look at this document, I can quickly understand that that document is not the writing of the alleged fraudster, that somebody else has done that. And I would say that the person doing that framing would get into a lot of trouble for it. They'd certainly lose the job. They may even go to jail for that, because that's fraud in itself. Fraud is all about misrepresenting things, lying. And if somebody's lying about somebody else being a fraudster, they are committing fraud to a great extent. So I'm pretty sure it does happen, and it would happen. Immediately we would notice and find it suspicious, discuss this with the client, and bring everybody into a room for a discussion. Right. Why are you doing this? Solve this and go and thump each other outside. Go and have a fight over it. Don't accuse somebody of fraud and try and get people in jail. So I'm pretty sure it does happen, but we'd find out straight away.
Right. Okay.
We have to be sure in our work. Remember, we're putting someone in jail for 10 years or more. We're taking them away from their family. We're ruining their lives. We have to be 110% sure it was them. We have to gather all the evidence, all the signatures, everything that proves it was them. So if somebody's framing somebody, we would catch that.
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And so we have time for just one more question, and it's going to be from Mr. Gray's class, and they're wondering, how do people embezzle money through offshore accounts? And if you're allowed to, not allowed to share this, that's okay.
Yeah, of course I can share. I just can't tell you the name of the clients that have done it. So it's relatively easy. It's tightened up a little bit. Embezzle money. I wonder why Mr. Gray wants to know that. I must talk to him. So I spent a lot of my career working in the British Virgin Islands and the Turks and Caicos Islands, and they are money laundering places. So it's quite simple. You open an offshore company in one of these places, then the offshore company opens a bank on that island, and then you literally transfer money to it if your bank allows it. It's easy to do that, and if you've got a legitimate reason for doing it, it's not illegal. You've got people evade tax, people avoid tax. Evasion is illegal, avoidance is a clever scheme. So a lot of these are grey areas, and they cross over into each other. But if you've got a business operating here, you could get your Panama company to invoice your business for management services, and you could pay that invoice, and you pay that invoice to your company in Panama. That's just a way of getting it in. That's a common way of doing it. You get the company down there to invoice you, and you're paying the invoice. You ask your bank to pay that invoice. You can have $1 million left over and be doing well in your business here, and you just put it on deposit in one of those places. So all of these can be legitimate means, but also the crooks use it as well. They have to hide their money. It's relatively easy to open an IBC. An IBC is an international business company on these islands, most of which, by the way, have secrecy law surrounding them. So you can never, if you live and work on those islands, you can never disclose the owners of those companies, the owners or shareholders. You're not allowed to do it. It's a criminal offence. So they're very secret, these things. And of course, in the last few years on television, we've seen a lot of these things being discovered, where Canadians, as well as lots of other people, I believe the royal family in the UK were involved in some, whereby they've got these accounts in these places to not necessarily hide the money, but keep it away from the public. Quite often the public they don't want the public to know that they've got all this money, so they put it offshore. Maybe there's a legitimate reason for it, maybe not.
Makes sense.
But it's relatively easy. Now, law enforcement, regulators, tax authorities are all clamping down at the moment on Switzerland and Panama and all these places, and they're asking for more transparency.
Okay. Well, thank you, Simon, and thank you everyone for your questions. Now this concludes our Q&A, so I'll be passing it back to our session coordinator, Fifi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucas.
Now that our session has come to an end, I would like to once again thank Simon for taking the time to speak with us today. And I'm sure we all learned more about forensic accounting. And also, please check out our Instagram at EPS-Stuco and at EPS_PLC_ for more events in the future. And lastly, a big thank you to everyone who joined us today and to all of our teachers and volunteers who made this possible. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Before I close the session, Simon, would you like to add anything else?
No, just thank you very much. A very valuable session. Please think about your career paths. Forensic accounting is very interesting. Yeah, make sure you go into something that you enjoy.
Yeah, that is very good advice.
Thank you to the organizers.
And that's it for this session. You're free to log out now, everyone. Have a nice day.